hopefully. Welcome to the April, yes, it's April, Jupyter Community Call for Jupyter Community Call April 2022. I always have to remember to say the year and fear that I'm going to say the wrong one because it feels extremely likely every day. But hooray, I'm super happy to have y'all here as we're working on kind of rescheduling where these calls fit with daylight savings, shenanigans, pushing some meetings and not others. Before we start, my usual announcements, right? So this call is recorded. You all know that, whatever that means to you, just a reminder. And of course, this is a Jupyter community event. We're bound by the Jupyter Code of Conduct. That includes me, if that's ever relevant. So yeah, you can find that anytime at jupyter.org/conduct. And hooray, that's what we're gonna get going this month. We have several items on the agenda, I will link the agenda one more time just in case it's needed, in case anyone slipped in. Please feel free to sign in, to add something. We do have some things on the agenda, but I have a feeling we might have a little time still. First things first, though, we're just going to follow the order of the agenda if anyone hasn't been here before. Any short reports, celebrations, shout outs, these are things that don't need discussion. I love hearing, particularly when people are like, wow, this person did this awesome thing. So I will be quiet for a few seconds to give y'all a chance to think of excitement. Okay. Oh, no, sorry. Did you mean to unmute?
I was just going to say shout out to everybody for dealing with time zone changes and making this meeting.
That was exactly what I was thinking too. Good one. Yeah, that's a good, yeah. I'm really grateful that you're all here, especially those of you where this is a really awkward time of day. So hooray. And yeah, in that case, we will go straight into the agenda items. We have a couple today that, just judging by the content, I'm guessing are from Nick first. That would be the Jupyter Lab Latex UX improvements PR, maybe Jupyter Lab Git usability improvements, and then below that, awesome, we have a few other people. But am I correct, Nick? Is that you?
No, this Nick.
Oh,
Nick.
okay.
Actually, I did this.
Oh, awesome. Wonderful. No, I love being surprised. I was just guessing. Please, are you ready to share?
Yeah, I'm trying to start my camera. Hello. I think this is the first time making to this meeting. I wanted to present a shout out / discussion for this project I had with a group of students who had their junior design capstone class. Who usually how it works, they find a client who's interested in some sort of features. So we pitched me as Axel Informatics and NH. We pitched the idea of having some more UX improvements to Jupyter Latex because it has amazing technical foundation to render PDFs and jump between editor and render text, but we feel like it needs some sort of UX improvements to bring it on par with some like overleaf and stuff like that. So the team worked for 2 semesters. First semester is really interesting. I never had this sort of class. So in the first semester, they did all the research, including user research and interviews. And if I can share my screen here. So what they did is they come up with a list of features and they conducted a very small sample size, but the user research on Google Forms to ask how they're familiar with LaTeX, how often do they use it, what they kind of find annoying or not working in their usual editors, what kind of features they would like to have from editor. So I feel like that was really interesting to get direct input from potential users. And then, yeah, so basically they come up with a list of features. The most difficult, I like the lack of good editor. But at the end of the day, they come up with a list of features they want to implement, which includes preview button. Currently, if you want to render a PDF preview, you have to right-click on the text of a text document and find the button. So just make it little bit easier to use and make the things like a little annoying things for beginners, such as subscripts, superscripts, and fractions and lists be easier to use. This is actually a little outdated screenshot. Another features I work on is filter and error log, because error log from Latex compilation can be really huge. So that's kind of providing more concise version on the right. And things like inputting mathematical constants or mathematical symbols. Okay. Whew, I'm glad the binder loaded, because I was waiting for the recording to start and binding was not loading, but it loaded from the second attempt. Okay, let me blow up the font a little bit. So this is a binder of their pull requests that they created. I wanted just to show how things would look like. So this is kind of their final version, but by the end of semester, what they have is this preview button, which is currently you need to click this one, but now you can click this preview button and that opens the editor. Just to demonstrate some features, if you want to create a subscript, you can have a desired subscript. So if you have an equation, you put X and you can do subscript I, for example, that will render this, this text. Or if you have XI, you can select I and click a subscript. So you have superscript, you have fractions as well. You can add a table. I think this one is really useful. You can just create a dummy table with some dummy data, which if you save, is going to get rendered, hopefully. Sorry. Yeah, so this is a good way to show the filtered output. So if you unfilter output, this is whole many lines, but if you can filter it by only important messages. So you can see there is no line to end here on line 34. Just like this. So if we save that, they're fixed, and you have a cell table with dummy data. You can enter stuff in. Another thing is you can have some templates of text plots. So if you ever need to create plot, usually I go straight to documentation to find it, but this gives some examples. For example, this one just plots function x squared. Another improvement included the main menu for LaTeX, where you can enter your mathematical constants. So if you have, for example, pi, you can enter it here. Or you can have mathematical symbols, which sometimes you just have to search for. And you have a bulleted list as well. So you can start creating items and numbered list as well. I think, so this is most of it. And the last feature was autocomplete. So if you type along LaTeX document and you have open LaTeX tags, for example, subsection, you can do tab and fill autocomplete. Okay, so with all of that, it's maybe not 100% polished, but they opened the pull request, and I intend to work with the community and developers to kind of finish it up. Get the feedback. Is this feature even needed in Jupyter LaTeX? Is this good at PR to be good features to be included in that extension? And if it is, I would like to work with the community, with someone's help to merge it. Okay, I'm trying to stop sharing.
I mean, you can keep it up and we can discuss a little. That was awesome.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I am personally so happy to hear people working on UX things in this space. Just to say that first, but I'll be quiet for a moment and let other people get a chance to comment.
This looks like a monumental amount of work, and it is one of the harder things to use for people who are trying to make a document that has multiple languages in it, right? They want to have some Markdown stuff, they want to have some Latex, and they want to have Python. And if you're not completely versed in all of the idiosyncrasies, it's really hard. So I'm glad you're putting thought into this. This is really welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm seeing in the chat too, Sarah added, you know, like, wish I had this back in my PhD. I feel like might be a common sentiment.
Yeah, I can tell the same. Yeah, the amount of time I went to Tixplots manual or Stack Overflow to figure out, oh, how do I enter this particular equation? Oh yeah. Yeah, good comment, Nick, about language server. Yeah.
Can I
Which,
ask? Oh, go on, Nick.
Using Zlotek, just the standard, you know, I installed this gigabyte of stuff from apt for your renderer.
Sorry, was that a question?
Well,
What
I
kind
mean, part of the UX challenge of Latex is installing Latex and the build chain that
Yep.
goes underneath it, and that remains elusive. So I think before, like, that might be worth something looking into of what happens when it goes wrong, right? And how is this going to help you get back from, I can't find Latex, or I made some syntax mistake that I can no longer compile my document, or those kinds of things. Like, once people get into it, they can find copy pasta stuff to help them get to that next, you know, that next step. And if there was an open source document, like help document, like a good curated one that you could just include to get opened right here, that can be more useful. You know, examples that you can copy and paste can be more useful than the pop-ups that still require you to synthesize something. You're like, I don't know what goes in there, you know. So those two things, those discovery aspects of how to know if it's even working and how to get it to do things, would help people a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get one of the students to do a summer internship. So this input could be really useful of the next features to add to this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I I would be curious, like you mentioned, right, this is student work with a class. I'm really curious how you ended up on this project. I saw it mentioned that there was someone who requested it, but I'm still curious, like, how that happened, even if you can explain.
Yeah, so my company, Axel Informatics, who's contractor to NH, we were the client for this class, sort of. And how we found out, because previously we already participated in this class, and we were a client before. That's how we got the idea to participate this time around. And I was pleasantly surprised with students' work. You know, I didn't put pretty much any code into here. They were really independent. So that's probably talks about not only their level, but only about not also about documentation quality, and you know that students can figure it out by reading Jupyter documentation and existing, you know, examples, repo, and yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do people have any other thoughts? I'm curious. I haven't looked at who's maintaining this repo at all, so I was checking that out. But other than that, do people have other thoughts they want to give?
Is what you see is what you get difficult with LaTeX and this extension? And that's like a general question.
Yeah, I think usually LaTeX is not done in what you see is what you get way. Usually two panels. yeah, unless you like converting from Markdown on the fly or something like that, but still.
Yeah, the kind of the heavyweight in that space is this tool called Lix. It's never quite like Word because there's so many more things that you can do in LaTeX than you can in Word. So it kind of gives you like boxes that you can type stuff into. So it's helping you discover what those terms might be, but it's not showing it to you as you're keystroking. There's been some work in just in the math space, like just in formulae, that is reasonable, but it is not open source. So we cannot have that in Jupyter Lab. I mean, someone could write it and then sell it somehow, but you know, it would not go well into here.
Yeah, I noticed Lick, which has been around for at least 20 years, describes it as what you see is what you mean rather than what you see is what you get, which I think fits with the way that LaTeX is intended to work.
Also fits with the way I was writing science back in my PhD. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that share. I don't know if I would have encountered this otherwise. That's why I love these calls, is I'm so glad when people are like, no, I do want to share something. So thank you for especially being brave also on your first time at this call. A lot of people don't do that. So extra props to you. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you for you for
Yeah.
the meeting.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I don't always do well with kind words, but thank you. Great. In that case, I think we can go to the next agenda item, which would be Jupyter Lab Git usability improvements. And I'm reading a little further now that this is the follow-up from a prior share about internship work on this extension, right?
Yeah. If I may, I will skip to the next point because I invited the student that participate to the call. They say they will try to join, so to let them the opportunity if it's possible. And
yeah.
As I'm next on the agenda, then
yeah, go
I
ahead.
keep the mic. Sure. So I would like to just demo. We have been working on a new extension for Jupyter Lab that's focusing. Hopefully that's the right one. Is it big enough?
I think it's okay.
That's good.
So the idea is to bring features that lots of people use in VS Code. It's search and replace across files within Jupyter Lab. So we have implemented that. So you get like a UX that's close to VS Code because yeah, I'm not so great in UX. So I took from better people than me. So you can set up some option for search, like you can have match cases, all word. You can use regex thing. So I'm gonna do stupid regex just to use it after for replacement thing. And it will display you it will highlight the matches in the file. If you click on the match, it will open the file. With the coming Jupyter Lab 3.4, it will be able to jump directly at the right position in text file, but for now it's not working. There is a limitation on the number of match it can return, so that's why sometimes you get this orange thing to say, okay, for now you may not have all the matches. And this is configurable through some options. You can increase the thing. Of course, the more matches you allow, the more chance you may get too much result, and the web page may start to be very slow. So depends what you are trying to do, of course. We have implemented the capability to add like include and exclude filters. You can define a default exclude pattern. Like by default, it will be only the checkpoints thing. And you can replace thing. So that's an example of replacement. You get a preview of what will be the new string afterwards, as in VS Code. And you can use you can use group for doing replacement. And so that's why I use the weird thing. So the $sign1 it's like the str here, and the $sign2 is like the G here that's replaced. It's not yet released. There is a very, very early version, but the final version will come hopefully this week. What's in the process for now is to allow the user to do undo when there is a replacement going on. So for instance, for now, there is only a checkpoints of the file that is created. So if I replace everything, so there is a checkpoints that should be created for now. That will be in test. So there's been a checkpoints created just right now. Yeah, what we want to do for the redo on the replacement on files is to open the file, and do the changes directly in the editor, so that the user can use the undo redo features of the editors, and that will be more comfortable and more secure too. So that's the latest thing we're working on before releasing. Yeah, I know, Nick. So it could be improved definitely, the core styling but if people want to have a look and provide some guidance on how to improve styling, I'll be more than happy to merge new styling for those kind of things. So basically, we are using the DOM element, delete, and the insertion. So that's quite easy to get those styled. And that's it for the demo.
This is so cool, though. I know that that's kind of an understatement, but really, this is not a demo I expected today. Thanks for giving us all a sneak preview of something that, isn't even fully released yet. That's awesome.
Yeah, this looks really great.
It's about to be, and it's already quite well tested, because we were very careful to create lots of tests. So hopefully the first release will be at least secure for the major cases. Of course, there are always gonna be some corner cases, but we'll patch when needed, then as usual. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm being quiet for any other last minute thoughts to appear. I really need like the Jeopardy theme. Yeah.
So what's the scope of the search?
True, I get it that a bit too quickly, probably. So basically, it's connected to the file browser default, and that's the tree is used. But if you go very deep, like let's say like this one, so by default it will be the same than the file browser, but you can click and go up, and we may implement a way for user to pick their own route of the search, because definitely compared to VS Code that is focusing on opening a project folder, Jupyter can be open on a very, very high up folder in the hierarchy of your computer. You may end up having like too much result for your request. Yeah.
Right, and with the recent feature, I think I saw somewhere to open arbitrary folder in the path. It will work very great.
Yeah.
If you do a search and you happen to be in a directory that has so much stuff in it that the search is slow, is there a way to cancel the search?
We don't have a button directly. We probably could do that. because for now, what's happening is that we are reacting on typing. So every time you type, if there is still something going on, the previous request will be canceled. So we could definitely add some buttons to say, okay, stop what you are doing. And of course, here it's like very quick because I'm not in such a large folder.
Right.
And
when you cancel on type, does the cancel actually end what the server is doing, or does it just end the client listening for that?
it's ending the subprocess call in the server.
Oh, sweet, cool.
So basically, we keep track of the task running on the server, and if a new request for a new task is coming, we cancel the previous one.
This is awesome.
Yeah, you're right, Nick. It will work only on, let's say, the classical way for user to have their Jupyter app application run on desktop, because we are using a tool that's called Ripgrep, and it's an enhanced grep, let's say, and it's looking directly at the file on the operating system. So if there is no file system, there is no extension, basically.
Is it feasible in a future version to have Ripgrep talk to a Jupyter Content Manager API instead of a file system API, or is that too baked into it?
It could be done. The main reason we have used Ripgrep is because it's very, very, very efficient. And if we use a content manager, then we'll do everything on the Python side. And so that's gonna be, of course, slower.
I know a lot of those words that Nick said, but I don't know what they mean.
So Ripgrep is great, and FCFF, whatever, are fantastic for local file systems. But as soon as you get above a certain point, you can't per keystroke them, because like it's not. If you're looking at gigabytes of data of genomic data or something, you're not going to be able to get that back in the speed that you want. So stuff like Whoosh or even Elasticsearch or whatever, you pre-index that, and then you can search a down selection of data much faster. So there was a Jupyter search back in Classic, and basically you pointed it at which folders in your contents manager you wanted to index, and then it pre-built an index of that. So you fire it up, it starts burning coal and starts indexing your stuff. So it's just a different, when do you want to pay for how expensive it is the question. But yeah, Ripgrep and FCFF or FZF would also be very interesting as another kind of backend, because regex is great if you know what you want, but if it's not port stemming, like it's harder, and not everybody thinks about their work as code that has a predictable number of characters. Like they might be looking for prose in their language. So there's other areas too.
Yeah, I didn't read about it exactly, but a GitHub dev that is using VS Code and allows to spin an editor from GitHub online without having a server is probably doing something like that, because when you trigger the search, you get a pop-up saying is downloading the index for the repository. So they are probably doing something like that, generating an index and allow in the front end to carry search.
Yeah, there's another one called lunar.py. That's if you type in something that looks like a TLD, you get what you ask for. So lunar is it's a play on words for solar, which is another search index tool. So Lunar is implemented in JavaScript. This is a Python side one that builds you indexes that can be used in the front end. So you would you'd move the whole index up to the front end. Again, it's all a question of how big of a thing you're searching. So, but it looks very nice.
Thanks, Nick Toilet, for sharing.
Yeah, wonderful. Last call for comments on that really cool demo. Really cool surprise demo. Okay. I'm checking. I haven't seen the number of participants change. Checking on the Jupyter Lab Git extension again. We can come back to it still if you want.
Yeah, I can confirm that seems that the students are unable to connect.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do it now? Do you want to check in after the next share? What would you prefer?
If it's okay, I can go after, so like that I can spin another demo for that.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. No, that's good. That's why I ask. So great. So, okay, I'm scrolling. Gail, you are next on the list.
Yay! I'm really excited that I'm here. For those of you I have not met, I'm Newish. I'm the Jupyter Community Events Manager, and I'm with NumFocus. So I work with Anna and Sylvan and Jason Grout on the Community Building Committee, and so we work on events. So this quick little synopsis. So big news, finally, I'm going to be launching the next round of call for proposals for the next round of the community workshops. And so there is a little bit of a pre-teaser with the NumFocus newsletter, but I'm going to be posting that hopefully that'll hit publish on that post in the Medium blog today. So you'll see more details, but just to give you a little, we've added a little more structure to it because events are going to be, in person, virtual. So we set a tier structure to that. So virtual events will get slightly less, where of course, in-person hybrid events will cost more. So keep an eye out for that. And also with another kind of effort that I've been trying to get to know the community, and it's a challenging thing from afar, and I just have to be more active about it. So I've been brainstorming, and one of the ways that I would like to start highlighting quarterly contributors. So a blog post, a highlight on a high contributor within the Jupyter community. So with that, you can see, and I'm going to put my Calendly post yet again in the chat, but it's also in the agenda. And so that's for anyone who is interested in chatting with me about what is important to the Jupyter community, because that's really what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to see what type of events will engage this community more. So, a nice quick half-hour conversation with me. I have some honed questions to ask, and plus I just like chatting. So anyways, I hope, Frederic, have I gone long enough?
I have some questions.
Oh, okay. I didn't. I'm like, here's my information. I'm out. No, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize at all. It's not bad. One of the things I wanted to check is, I'm glad you have a Calendly link. Do you want that on the final posted notes? Can that be totally public? Okay.
Totally public. Yeah. It's just half-hour blocks on my calendar. Okay. And so it's the easiest way to get on the books for me, because I know everyone has different time zones they're working from.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I really love to hear from the community and what you want to see represented in the form of events, both virtually and in person.
May I clarify also with the highlighted contributor, are people like self saying like, hi, I want to talk about something I do, or is this okay? Yeah.
Yes. I may regret this, but sure, we'll see.
Well, I wasn't sure if there was some process where you're like, oh, people,
No.
or we want to ask like, who would you want to hear from? Like, I want you to tell me to reach out to people, or you want people to reach out to you. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So even if you have, so let me throw my email in there. So even if you have people where you're like, you really need to speak to this person, please let me know. That's the thing about starting and working remotely. You're in this little bubble, and being that I'm the community events manager, I feel like I have to kind of put a little more effort in being out there.
Well, and Jupyter is pretty sprawling on its own, just to, to give you some credit. That's arguably why this call exists. So awesome. Do other people have any questions? I'll be silent for a few seconds. Awesome. That's exciting. And I'm excited to hear about the new call for proposals too. I hope to see some of those events. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Frederick, was that enough time, or are we going to Steve?
We can go to Steve.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Gail and Steve.
Well, unfortunately for you, Frederick, mine's going to be pretty short. So I just want to highlight during last week's Jupyter Server Contributing Hour, which I linked to the issue that has the times for that. It's basically the hour right after our weekly call to talk business. Someone can suggest a topic, or if nothing else. Last week there was no one had any questions, so we just built a cookie cutter template for Jupyter Server Extensions. So you can install cookie cutter and then cookie cutter and hit a link to this repo and ask a few questions, and then basically give you the scaffolding to make your own publishable Jupyter Server extension with as minimal effort as possible. So we get the bare bones structure of it. It still probably needs like tests and such, but we basically started from the Jupyter Lab extension cookie cutter, which had both the front end extension and the server extension components, stripped out the front end components, and cleaned it up a little bit, and now that's out there ready for consumption. So it's still sort of alpha state, but it's there, and so any feedback or contributions are welcome there. And again, to highlight the contributing hour, I think other teams have talked about doing something similar, but it's been working pretty well for us. We've been doing it for like a couple months now on the Jupyter Server team. That's it.
Can I check with contributing hour? The intention is kind of just like having an office hour, right? With like experienced like contributors or maintainers there, where anyone can come say, hey, I want to contribute, or hey, I need help, or something like that.
Yeah. So for instance, one of the weeks, someone had a question about how to make a WebSocket handler extension. So we just built one live together and just geeked out over that. And now we created a repository called Contributing Hour under the Jupyter Server org that has that content. So whatever we made during the Contribute Hour is now available as a reference.
Yeah, what I was going to say was it's not like a general purpose office hours. The original intent had to do more with, especially with Jupyter Server, this is a component of something that you might use, but it's not something you use by itself. And so contributing to it might be quite obscure to you, because even something like as sophisticated as Jupyter Lab, at least you understand what the application looks like. So you're like, oh, I just want to add a button here, right? But with Jupyter Server, there's even less of that. And so how do you even begin doing a contribution? So whether it's picking a bug and fixing it to show how you set up your environment and fix a bug, or whether it's starting a new project, which Steve made much easier with this cookie cutter, it's to help onboard people who have an interest in making contributions to a portion of the stack that is a little less easy to reason about.
No, that makes total sense. With that also, like I'm seeing there's this new repo for keeping track of the code that you mentioned, but are there like notes anywhere else, or is this just kind of I know it's hard to do it all. I'm more asking just because I think this is really interesting. So yeah.
I think we put some notes in the weekly notes minutes. So there's a running issue with the weekly meeting notes, but no, we haven't formalized, other than the README of the contributing hour repo. All right, so the intent was we'd have a branch for any kind of artifact that we've made, and the README of that branch would have kind of a synopsis of what we did. Just so happens we've only got one so far. So, well, two artifacts: the WebSocket example and the cookie cutter have been the things we've produced from these. Other than that, it's been Zach explaining aspects of the stack basically, and yeah. So, but other ideas are welcome.
No, that's great. I just figured while you were here I would ask. So yeah, I know it's hard to both give answers and write things down while you're saying them, and yeah, so but that just seems like a really awesome resource and a super cool pattern that other people may want to pick up. I'm glad to hear that's going well. Cool. Any other comments on this super cool meeting and its results?
I'll give a quick
Go on.
I'll give a quick shout out for the Jupyter Triage meeting, which actually is not going to happen this week because I have a conflict. But we typically do it on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We go through all of the untriaged Jupyter Lab issues, and we usually triage all of them. We've had like the last month we went from 14 untriaged issues down to 1. And so it's an important thing to help build trust with folks to say, if you file an issue, we will at least look at it and accept it or ask you for questions or close it as a duplicate of already existing issues, ideally within a week or 2. And so we've had good progress with that. If you can't make it, if that time doesn't work for you, please just take a look at items that are in need of triage and remove that tag if you'd like to accept some of the work in progress anyway. I can't hear you, Isabel. I think you're
No,
muted.
that was I was like, that's a great shout out. I was trying to add it to the notes while you were talking so that people could find it on the calendar if they wanted. Yeah, that's another meeting I've been really excited to hear about. The power of meetings for sure. I know people don't always want more on their calendar, but sometimes it really is the best way to get a kind of commitment and to jump into it. So yeah, if you're into rolling heavy stones up a hill once a week, this is the meeting for you. Thank you, Darian.
It's Project Sisyphus. Thank you. That's the code name.
Awesome. Frederic, we're almost out of time. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yay! Hooray! I'm so excited to hear follow up on this. And let the interns know if they ever want to share this again. Like, they can always come at a call that's a better time for them.
Sure. I will reiterate the invitation. So for those who may not know it, there is a Git extension for Jupyter Lab. The idea of it is to get a sidebar in which you can handle the Git action within the current open repository. So this is the demo. The students that work on the extension, they did it through a program that's called the MLH program. And the idea is, of that program is to bring a student closer to open source project for them to learn how to program, and for open source project to get some hands to fix issues or create new features. And so this time, the student, they tackled some small things, like one was when you get a file that's in stage status, that means it's going to be part of a commit. If you open it and it's in a dirty state because it's not safe, then you will get a pop-up showing, okay, be careful because maybe you want to save your file before committing. So that was one of the small things that they have tackled. One big new feature they have tackled is in the history. So now you get new icons and you can decide to select any two commits and you will get the diff between any two commits. And for the comparison between those two commits, you can open the file diff between those two commits. And so it's for the full history, and it's also applicable for a single file history. The single file history was introduced by another student. And so that's the same ID. So you pick up a reference and then a challenger, and because it's a single file directly, it's opening the diff file. Okay, you can end up having lots of tabs, but that's the trouble. And the other main issue they have tackled is about credential in the extension. So up to now, there were no way of, or there were no attempts to cache credential, Git credential. And most of the time for users that are either on Linux, on Mac, usually they use SSH, and so they use the SSH agent on their computer. On Windows, the Git tool is coming with its own way of dealing with credential within Windows. So usually it was not trouble. Usually troubles arise when you are installing that extension in an organization and people are connecting to a cloud services and the credentials are not set up in those kind of organization. So what we have introduced now is that I cannot demo it unfortunately, but the extension will pop up asking for your credential, and you have the ability to say, please cache my credential. And so behind it, what will happen is that the extension will use Git cache credential helper. So that's something that's come with Git. It's not something we have invented, so it's safe, let's say. And so by default, if you are in such a configuration that you don't have any Git credential helpers set up, and you try to connect to a distant repository that requests credentials, so the extension will ask you for your credential, and you will get the options to cache them using that tool. And the default is to cache the credential for an hour, but that could be changed with server settings. So if you want like to make it 10 hours for having a full working days, for example, that's kind of easy to change. And those are really the two main features they have done. I released the extension yesterday, so it's already possible to try it. And feel free to come back to the repository if something is not working as expected and stuff like that, because especially those credential helpers things that are not easy to test. So feel free to open issue or to ask question on that, either right now or through issues or discussion on the repository. So I'm really pleased with the work the students have done, and I want to thank them even if they are not attending, but that's fine. That's very great work from them.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, these have all been such awesome demos today, y'all. Thank you. This is like making my morning. Though I'm wondering, I feel like I might, am I wrong? Did I see an intern appear? No, okay, no, I just made that up. Cool. Yeah, thank you for the follow-up on that though too. It's been really, I love when people do like follow-up demos, honestly. It's just really cool to see things evolve over a period of time. Anyone else have comments?
Great features for Git extensions. I really like it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay then. Y'all shared some really awesome things today. So I'm so excited. I thought we had an empty agenda. Y'all like must have snuck in a bunch of things at the last minute. Awesome. Can I ask, while I have you all here, since you all are right at a community call, I'd like to give some preference there in terms of scheduling. For summary, for anyone who may not have heard, we had a recurring time on the Jupyter community calendar for this call, but with daylight savings, some meetings moved, some meetings didn't move. So it kind of like closed in on all the windows that we typically do calls, because we think that there are some of the windows that work for a couple time zones that we have a lot of contributors in. But I'm not totally sure where to put that. So right, you found your way here today, but this meeting is a little earlier than it usually is. So do people have any feedback that they want to give there? I'd really like to make sure that these continue to work for people, right? Like these calls are ultimately about all of you. So moment of silence has begun. Okay. You're all just exceedingly flexible about this. That's okay. We'll propose something.
I'm looking at the calendar. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I'm looking at the calendar now. There's not a whole lot of times that are uniquely available for this. This is the challenge, is that, you know, going later, you run into problems where, like, on the US West Coast, it's scrum o'clock after 10 o'clock, and then too early, and you know, you lose those of us. So there's not a whole lot of times that are generally available.
Right, that's what I found. Go on, Gail. Or Sarah, I don't know, actually, it's not showing me who's talking.
Sorry, it's me. I was gonna recommend maybe what the Jupyter Hub team do, which is alternate on a monthly basis. So 1 month it's early in Europe for I think it's even it matched up with like Asia time zones, and then the next month it's like in the late afternoon, evening, matched up with America time zones. It does mean that Europe get all of the joy of all of the meetings, and you will need to find a backup for the Asia friendly ones as well. But it's kind of like a way to be more inclusive. I don't know if that would work with the calendar.
That's actually something I've really been wanting to do. When I go to the Jupyter Hub, for me at least, the times are usually like 8 a.m. or 1 a.m. basically, at my time. And so, well, I've made it to both of those. My thought was, can I run a good meeting at 1 a.m. basically? And so I would need someone else, which I would love to have another host. Just so far, nobody has taken me up on that. So I guess this is also a chance that if anyone ever wants to host these calls, that's open. I'm not laying claim to them specifically. I just wanted them to keep happening. And so that's why I'm here essentially. But yeah, no, I would really like to do a rotating time as well. There may be a time that isn't 1 a.m. for me that's still very helpful. So that may be what I look into. Yeah. Awesome. Also, that is like an open call for feedback on this. I really do not know what the step forward is right now, because we have a lot of meetings on the calendar, which is awesome because a lot of them are great, right? Like we were talking about 2 today with like the contributing hour and triage meeting, but I really try not to overlap with those because the idea is that we're gathering people from all over. So I don't want to like exclude someone's meeting and make someone choose between it, is why this is a little tough. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much all for your time. Before you go, there is a meeting scheduled next, but I haven't decided what time it is yet. So there will be a meeting in May, but I haven't ironed out what time it's going to be. So I actually don't get excited, but don't expect anything yet. What I'm trying to get you real quick is my usual feedback link, just so that you all can have that if you have any thoughts for later.
There is one scheduled on the calendar for May 31st at 8 a.m. Pacific time, although that is also just after the Memorial Day holiday in the US, which is a common vacation time. And speaking for myself, I'll be away during that time.
It's good to know. I forget about US holidays, even though I'm in the US. So thank you for that feedback. No one tells me when there are holidays. So yeah, it's right now, it's just, I still have the same schedule on the calendar. It just conflicts directly with the security meeting. And I don't want to do that. So awesome. We are at time, so I will let you all go, but I really appreciate you joining me in my experiment with captioning and taking call scheduling feedback. once again, thank you so much for all those demos. You really don't understand how much it makes my day. And I love having recordings so we can keep sharing with each other all the amazing work that you all do. So with that, be free. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you around.
Thanks a lot,
Remember to
Isabella.
stop your recording, Isabella.